Hello, friends. It's Pastor Jeff Lehn, and before I begin a brief reflection on joy, I just want to offer my sincere thanks to all of you that have submitted these Advent devotionals. What a gift it's been to me to learn from you as you've reflected on hope and peace, and now this week joy, and next week love. Thank you for your deep and genuine faith. As I think about joy and God's gift to us in this season of Advent, when we're feeling so much collective grief and disorientation and upset, I think about the fact that joy, oddly enough, is paired with sorrow. That true and lasting joy, not the happy-clappy, sort of fleeting kind, but the true and lasting joy found in God, found in the depths of our soul, is not a joy that is, always on cloud nine. It's a joy that feels deep resonance, and sometimes our capacity for it grows over time as we experience sorrow, as we walk around the block of life a few times, experience the death of a loved one, experience being fired, experience a very difficult relational breakdown, experience, and you can fill in the blank here, anything that has caused us pain and suffering, ironically enough, as God would have it, can also help teach us, can help allow us to grow into the very people God has called us to be, beacons of God's light and life and love. So as I think about this Advent and Christmas and all that is confining us, all that is causing us sorrow, we just passed, I think, the 300,000 person mark of those who died of COVID just here in the U.S. alone. Wow, it's a lot to hold. We are holding a lot of sorrow in our collective lives, our personal lives. A poem came to mind by Khalil Gibran, a Palestinian American poet and writer from the late 1800s and early 1900s. He writes a poem titled On Joy and Sorrow. And I just want to read it because for me it helped me make sense of the familiar and profound Luke chapter 2 text, the Christmas story, the kernel of it that we're reflecting on together this week, that surely had both joy and sorrow in it. Anyone who's experienced birth, I haven't personally, but in watching my spouse Ariane do so, talk about an experience of both joy and sorrow. So the poet Gibran writes on joy and sorrow. Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the selfsame well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say, joy is greater than sorrow, and others say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. Verily, you are suspended like scales between your sorrow and your joy. Only when you are empty are you at standstill and balanced. When the treasure keeper lifts you to weigh his gold and his silver, needs must your joy or your sorrow rise or fall. So friends, be reminded today that God, whose love we cannot be separated from in life or in death, has given us this gift of joy, and along with it, this gift of sorrow, these gifts that can't be separated from one another, the ups and downs of the human experience, And Christ meets us right where we are, whether we're feeling more sorrowful or more joyful today. Christ meets us with the breathtakingly joyful news of Christ's birth. Peace be with you, friends.